What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of the After the Arch podcast. We got a really great podcast coming up for you. We have a special guest, Charlie Hall, a former Northwestern basketball player and current comedian and actor. But before that, we got a quick intro for you guys with our close friend and self-proclaimed Northwestern basketball expert, Derek Krantz. Derek's going to talk with us a little bit about recruiting and the current state of Northwestern basketball. So some recent news to go over. Max Christie has recently committed to Michigan State. And Northwestern just got a commitment from Casey Simmons, making them currently we have the third best recruiting class for the 2021 year, I believe, in the country. So Derek's going to talk a little bit about that and about our path to try to get Pat Baldwin Jr. So what do you have to say about that, Derek?
How's it going, boys? Thanks for having me on the pod. And like you said, today, Max Christie, who's the 12th ranked player in the country, committed to Michigan State. And so the big significance of that to us is that he's been tied to Patrick Baldwin Jr., who, as you said, we're on the hunt for right now. Patrick Baldwin Jr. is the third ranked player in the class of 2021. So the fact that we're going after him at all is like unheard of for Northwestern. He would be by far the best recruit we've ever gotten. And so I know Zach Blank is more pessimistic than I am about Northwestern basketball sometimes, but we do, or at least did, have a solid shot at Patrick Baldwin Jr. So the news about Max Christie is actually not quite as negative as it seems, because the big storyline with them too is that they were going to be a package deal somewhere, and that Patrick Baldwin Jr. might go with him to Duke. But Michigan State, who Christie just committed to, is not on Patrick Baldwin Jr.'s top 10 list. I don't hear anybody saying that he's going to go to Michigan State. There's no indications that he's going to go with him. So that kind of indicates that Patrick Baldwin Jr. could split off from him a bit, which might actually be good news for us. So on the surface, it seems like this great player is going to come to Northwestern, but there might be a bit of a silver lining to that. So, Zach, I know that you take the bad news wherever you can find it. So how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I mean, I look at that and I think that a Big Ten rival got a top 15 recruit in the 2021 class, which we don't have. I also look at the news that we have a top 3 recruiting class in 2021 and say that, none of the 5 stars have signed yet. So, I mean, it's definitely a good sign and a positive trend for Northwestern. But as the person who loves to shit on Northwestern sports, I always find places to put in my 2 cents.
And you know what? That's fair, honestly, because once the 5 stars do start dropping, right now we're the third best recruiting class in the country. We're not going to stay there. But the fact that we're there at all, like, that's way better than we are normally at this point. That's not just like normal. The 3 stars are going and we're up there. Like, we're going to get knocked down. You're right, but we're still in a very good place. This is our best class we've ever gotten, with or without Patrick Baldwin Jr.
What do you think the potential is of this class, Derek?
I've said this before. I'm taking my stand. I've gotten some pushback for it, but the year that this class is freshmen, so that's the 2021 to 2022 year, our team is going to make the tournament. I fully believe that. There's not a lot of people who also believe that, but I'm fully on board with that idea, because if you look at our roster from this year, there's only 2 players who got significant minutes that aren't going to be on that 2021 to 2022 team. That's Pat Spencer and that's AJ Turner. Like, they're both great players, but in college basketball, even more than the NBA, experience matters more than anything else does. And so you have Miller Kopp as a senior. You have this freshman class as juniors, and you have a lot of that talent coming in as a freshman class. We're going to make the tournament. It's going to happen.
One other thing that a lot of people have been talking about is with that number 3 recruiting class, that's 3 more scholarship slots that are being filled up. And so one option people have been talking about is the potential for maybe some guys to transfer. We know our guy, Jared Jones, just transferred to Middle Tennessee, and transferring out of Northwestern has become a bit of a trend. Do you see any of our current guys potentially transferring and opening up some future scholarship slots for young guys?
I mean, I can't speak to specific guys. It's obviously a possibility, but losing Jared Jones is not great. I mean, when you lose anybody, it's not great. A small silver lining to opening up that one more roster slot, that especially even if it sucks that he's gone, there's still a sliver of hope that we can get Patrick Baldwin Jr. now. Because the way our roster is currently structured, you get 13 scholarship slots on a college basketball roster, from my understanding. We have 13 filled up. But if Anthony Gaines, who spent most of this last year, hurt, if he doesn't take that extra year as a medical redshirt, we still have 1 slot open for Patrick Baldwin Jr. he's likely going to take that. I don't see why he wouldn't. And so in that case, the only way we get Baldwin is that if he decides for some reason he wants to come here and walk on, which some people have discussed. I don't really know how much of a serious possibility that is, especially for a player of his caliber, but it's possible. But yeah, with anybody transferring, of course, it's a big loss, but you do get an extra roster slot open, which is huge in college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said that, with the Pat Baldwin Jr. thing, I think that, there definitely are a lot of people worried that we're not going to get him because of trouble with roster spots and scholarship spots. But I don't know. I just feel like if he does want to come here, we'll find a way to make the room.
Yeah, I mean,
that might be the least Zach Blank thing I've ever heard you say.
Honestly, I feel like it could be a bad sign in that if we're already filling up all our scholarship slots, that might mean that we're confident we're not going to get him, and so we're able to give offers to other guys. It might also mean that, like you said, maybe he's committed to like the potential of walking on if he comes or something like that. But honestly, from my perspective, it looks to me like if we're making other high-profile signings, like with 4 stars and stuff, that it's likely that we don't think we have very good chances.
I think what the recruiting team did and what Coach Collins did is they went ahead and they said, look, Pat Baldwin Jr., he's this huge recruit. It's kind of unlikely we'd get him. We have some roots to him. We know that we could get him, but let's go ahead and let's recruit this class as if we're not going to get him. And what they've done right now, they've done the absolute best job they can doing that.
I think you're 100% right on that. I think what Collins probably did is he said, look, like, there's a chance we get Patrick Baldwin Jr. That's like a risk if we don't go after these other guys like the Casey Simmonses, the Julian Ropers, and Brooks Barnheiser. And so you go after those guys, you secure yourself the best class in Northwestern history, but you might eliminate a chance of getting Patrick Baldwin Jr. That's so much better than if you go fully after Patrick Baldwin Jr., you lose these other guys, and then what if he still goes to Duke? Where does that leave you, And so I think Coach Collins took a slightly safer route, but it's one that left us still with our best class in history. So I don't think you can hold that against him, really.
All right, Derek. So, gun to your head, what do you think, all things considered, is the most likely landing spot for Pat Baldwin Jr.?
I really don't like that I'm saying this. Makes me a little bit sad. But I think the way that things are going right now, he's probably going to end up at Duke. We're going to have to be okay with that because, like I've said a million times, this class is loaded. Especially for us. This is a class that can go pretty far. It's fine. Patrick Baldwin Jr. is out of the conference. We don't have to play him. Hopefully I'm wrong about that. I really hope I am. But I think it's kind of likely that he ends up going there now. And I think this team can do some damage with or without him.